How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to another video. This is my GT500 behind me, and last you guys saw we were able to get a 702 60 to 130. So I have a couple of theories on how to get a little bit faster, some very obvious ones and some less obvious ones. I want to go ahead and get into that in this video, but there's a couple of little bits I want to talk about. We got pretty quick. There's a few things I did find out I need to address though, which I honestly might have been losing some boost on these runs. We'll see. But I'm gonna go ahead and get into that in a minute. So let me go ahead and get behind. So if you guys saw that short I posted, I went ahead and put a wrench on here, and I'll play it for you real quick. And as you guys saw, that was with the 2.6 pulley, which is right here, and the belt spun pretty easily. So now, granted, spinning it backwards is not the direction that it would actually spin this way. So it does pull the tensioner back just by default. So like this one, I can spin it by hand a little bit, and it's sliding around the balancer down there. But regardless, can't spin it the other way. It pulls on the tensioner. There's no way. So that's fine. I'm not super worried about that. I have the 2.8 on here right now. It's winter and we're not really beating on the car, but I wanted to show you guys a couple things. So first, I put on an 85-inch belt because my tensioner was almost maxed out with the, not this one, the actual tensioner was almost maxed out with the 2.8 pulley on it. It felt very tight. I didn't like it. I was like, you know what, let's go to a bigger belt. What the bigger belt let me do with this pulley was keep this idler as far down as I could go to make sure it had as maximum amount of belt wrap. Sweet. I don't think we had any issues with this pulley. Where it became a problem, going down to the 2.6, and I didn't notice it because the 2.6 is still just big enough that it didn't make itself apparent. But when I went down to the GripTech 2.5, put it all on, left that where it was actually loose. Like, it was just very loose. Like, it wasn't even that tight on the pulley. I was like, oh crap. That's only 0.1 inches smaller than the 2.6. So there's a very solid chance it might have been having some belt slip. When we're going down the track, I've always been talking about how my boost seems to be a little bit weird, especially how it seems to lose. Now it could be because these cams are really opening up in that 35 to 4,000 RPM range and higher. They really do flow a lot more air. Could be why I'm seeing less boost, you know, less restriction, better airflow. But I still think that might be a bit weird, so we'll test that in this video. But the other thing, going to a bigger pulley, what I should have done instead of going to a smaller belt is just loosen this bolt, and this whole tensioner will rise up and give me all my slack so I can keep the actual tensioner down there that has fixed range of motion in its optimal position. So that's what I should have done. So I went ahead and got a 84-inch belt, which is the stock length belt that works with the 2.4 and whatever other size you need, as long as you have that auxiliary tensioner, which I have, obviously right there. So, and then we got some new spark plugs. So you guys do know I do tune this car. I don't tune this car. We check the tune with this car beating me. I check the tune, and the tuner sends me his recommendations and does his thing. But check it by spark plugs. So what I'm looking for on the spark plugs primarily, we know we're limited with Spark Advanced because of the fuel, although we were getting pretty much very close to 85 levels of timing the last time we were out because the octane booster seems to be working great. After a run like that, I pull the plugs and we look for any kind of detonation. Now, the butane will leave a orange residue on the plugs, but as long as you check it right after the run and they're fresh plugs, it'll be a slight tint of orange. But for the most part, you can still read the plug. What I'm looking for is any kind of speckles on the plug that could indicate detonation. I've never seen that. I'm always very careful with the air cooler and making sure that we're good to go on fuel octane. Never had a problem with that. So, but we got some new plugs because we're going to go ahead and test the 2.5 pulley next and want to see how it does. So if you guys haven't seen, I picked up a 2.5 GripTech pulley. It has a nice coating on here. This is mainly my racetrack only tune pulley. I don't really want to run this all the time. I mean, we probably could, but it'll be fine. 10% lower and some other stuff. Another thing I wanted to get into real quick before we talk about anything else, I finally got a straight answer. The 10% lower is worth 2 upper pulley sizes. So on the 2.6, it would be the equivalent to running a 2.4 with a stock size balancer, if that makes sense for the equivalent airflow. So 2.5 is now going above what this blower can do with the stock balancer, and now we're into that extra territory. Just so you guys are aware. I was also doing some other research, and this is on me, so I'm not a professional by any means whatsoever. I'm just talking with my experiences specifically and things I looked up. I started following Cody Cheney's build a lot closer. He's the one who did stock record, stock trans, stock motor record with the VMP Gen 3R. Obviously, this throws nowhere near as much air as a VMP Gen 3R does, but I was curious what made that motor live into the horsepower ranges he was pushing it. And he didn't do it long. He wound up building the motor, la-di-da. But up until that point, it looked great. He never broke the motor. And the trick seems to be keeping timing somewhat mild. When he was really pushing it, it was only 18.5 degrees of timing. Good octane fuel. I think he was running ethanol 1R, or not 1R, Ignite E90, I believe, and some regular pump E85. So good 100, 105 octane fuel, and keeping timing mild, and all of the boost, engine was happy. So that seems to be the trick to keeping this thing alive. And based on what I've seen from BJ's tuning, that's exactly what he does. He keeps the timing somewhat conservative, maybe not conservative all the time. 21 degrees is a little aggressive, and we did talk, we're gonna pull that back out a little bit and see what the extra boost does. But at the end of the day, airflow, cool airflow with a good intercooler or a bigger blower, plus fuel equals power, which makes sense. So the timing comes into there, and that'll definitely, if it's not optimized, you're not gonna get the maximum amount of power, but that's kind of how you make power. The downside with this blower being a Gen 2 and smaller displacement is hotter air. The more I spin this thing, the more the rotor pack and everything is starting to come to its limits, amount of boost it can make. So 2.5, pretty damn close to what the original owner had. He had a 2.4 with this setup, and 100 octane is what he was saying he's running. So I'm gonna try this out. We're gonna do the regular 93 tune, which is an 18.5 degrees of timing, see how that does. And then we'll go ahead and check out some other stuff. On the 60 to 130 note of things, getting rid of the street wheels and going to the drag pack over there, I guarantee we'll knock off probably a tenth or two, and we should be good there. So just a really long roundabout way of doing stuff, and I just kind of wanted to explain where I'm at with everything. Also, Ace Delco belt, I do not care that much about my belts, brand-wise anyway. With the auxiliary tensioner, it being a grip tech, I promise you this thing is not going to slip. The Gates Green is really awesome, especially if you don't have an auxiliary. They are apparently really good belts, but there's like a $30 price difference between these two, and honestly, for the amount of wrap we have and grip on here, not worried about belt slips, so we'll be fine. I just picked this one up because it was available. So we're gonna go ahead and swap over pulleys, swap over new spark plugs, do some hits with some butane. It's got my year's worth of supply of butane over there on Black Friday, which is pretty sweet, and kind of see how it all works. So this video might be a bit delayed getting out there. I'm weather limited before I can just start sending it, but we should be pretty good. So I'm excited, and we'll see how it does. Well, good thing we're going through this stuff. So I found this was my tensioner was actually a little bit loose, which was concerning. I went ahead and unbolted it, and I was like, huh, that came out really weird. And it had several more turns to go before it was tight again into the car. I haven't had this thing off since we did the cams, and either it just never got torqued or something. So that could have been concerning. And then going over all the pulleys and everything, I've got one pulley right here that's got quite a bit of play in it. It's just an idler, it doesn't really do anything, but it's not making any noise, but it is a little loose, so I might order a new one of those at some point. Other than that, alternator has a slight squeak to it on slowing down. So it's possible that there's a bearing going out of that, I don't know. Another thing we built so many times at this point, I'm gonna let it ride, it'll be fine. But yeah, so it's kind of weird. I was just kind of going over everything, giving it a good look. To get the belts off of this car, it's kind of a pain in the butt. You have to pull off your heavy duty tensioner or your 10 rib tensioner because it sits facing the car this way to get the belts off. And I'm just kind of going over everything, checking and see how it does. I mean, all the other pulleys feel pretty good. Nothing too crazy. Yes, you know, if you're gonna have it apart, might as well check everything. But yeah, so I might order a new idler pulley for there. And then I'm gonna put a little Loctite on this tensioner bolt and torque it down. I think it goes like 15 to 18 foot-pounds, somewhere in there. And we'll really make sure that's good, because that's not good. So if this thing is too loose, it can eventually start working its way into the actual front cover of the car. I didn't see any evidence of that. Definitely could be a problem though. So the belt was riding a little bit on this inner edge more than the outer, which would explain, I guess technically it would push it out if it's loose. But yeah, just something to be aware of. So glad we're checking over everything. All right, new belt's on. Tensioner's nice and tight. Went ahead and cleaned up one of the pulleys. Had a little grease spot on it. Just kind of leaving a weird mark on my green belt. But yeah, so that was a little weird. Glad that everything's nice and tight now. You know, sometimes it's worth taking a look over stuff. I get a little cocky every once in a while. I kind of forget to do that. But it's looking good. No, not able to spin this bad boy at all, either direction, which is awesome. I lifted this pulley up as high as it would go. You can see there's more gap in here. And the stock size 84-inch belt fits fine. Plenty of room on the tensioner to move it a little bit further down if needed. And basically what that's doing, when you hit a rev limiter, when you're just doing stuff on the thing, the belt will stretch a little bit. I want to make sure there's enough room for it to bounce back and forth and not damage any of the crank or anything else that has tension on it. That's why you have that slack adjustable tensioner in there that'll move with the spring-loaded tensioner in there. So I'm going to put the accessory belt back on, and then we should be good to go. I don't know if I'm going to put the 2.5 pulley on just yet. Like I said, I don't really have a way to test it at the moment, but there we go. All right, so obviously we know the belt's shorter, but I went ahead and adjusted the tensioner back down a little bit just because I was curious. So how the wrench is sitting at this angle, it is currently on the tensioner right now, the heavy duty one. Prior with the old belt and everything else being the same, this thing was pretty much right about here. It was pressed into the coolant tank at full tension. And we obviously have a decent bit more tension on the thing to go. So just proof of concept, if you have the adjustable idler, the 10% overdriven pulley on the crank pulley, and a 2.6 or 2.5 or really even a 2.4, stock size 84-inch belt will work just fine. So yeah, I put the 2.6 back on there because I want to test it and see if we're getting more boost. That would absolutely affect 60 to 130 times and everything else if we're not getting the appropriate amount of boost. So probably gonna run out the same tune-up we had last time, not the spicy one, but just the regular one that ran a 7.2, and just see what it does. Put some octane booster in there, let it eat, and see what happens. All right, so we are out here, and I'm planning on just doing a third gear pull. Same 2.6 pulley we were on before, some boosting in the tank, not on the race tune. I'm also not planning on doing a 60 to 130 pull by any means. I do just want to see what our boost looks like though. It's about 60 degrees out, so I'd say pretty comparable weather to what we had the other day. Maybe 10 degrees colder, give or take a little bit. So, gonna go ahead and do a hit and see what it looks like. Fun leaving some rubber and the street wheels on. Man, missed the drag pack. Gotta get the thing back on here. Feels good. back from testing. It's been a few days later. Unfortunately, I did another pull and I didn't catch it on the GoPro, but same result. I did a 3-4 and pretty much same boost as it was before, which is good. It means we did not have any belt slip as far as I can tell. 1 inch smaller belt and everything else was good to go. I am very happy we got a chance to go ahead and go through all the pulleys. That was a little bit alarming to have anything loose like that, but it's good to go now. Put a little Loctite on there, made sure it's nice and cinched down, so we should be good. It's crazy. It's always something small, I swear. But we caught it, and maybe someone's looking out for me. So pretty happy to know the car is good to go. So as far as I'm concerned, I saw 17 PSI. That was on the one I did video. I was able to see it in third gear. I saw 17 PSI as we saw before. Upper in the RPM range, it was pretty good. We see that 18 a little bit lower in the RPM range before it really gets up there. So yeah, pretty happy with that. Obviously it's cold out on the street tires. We're not going to get any traction, but it is what it is. So good to see. Means as far as I'm concerned, cleared for the 2.5. Go ahead and try that out probably next time. I thought it was going to be this video, but it is going to be cold for the foreseeable future, going on vacation and whatnot, so it's going to be a little bit longer. But that's where we're at with everything. I don't think transmission stuff's going to happen for a bit. I still want to get it done before we go drag racing again, but just it's not going to be as quick as I thought it was. Got quite a bit of work stuff coming up. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take it easy.